Hello everyone, I'm Heather. I'm back for a video that I cannot promise will be quick because there's a lot of things to ramble about. So this is the literary adventures tag. So I was tagged in this by Karen Evans. I'll put all that below. Hers is really cute. Loads of other people have done it. I saw 2 of them already and I think another one just popped up, potentially. And I think that, so she made this one as an original tag. And I think it might have popped up from like something she was saying about the John Belair's house. Like I said that I'd read The Clock in the Walls one or whatever, and she said, oh, I've been to his house, and then I think it spawned from there, but I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a cute tag because loads of people are doing it, aren't they? Like, we're all bookworms here, we can all be honest, we chase down these locations like they're crack. Like, every time I go anywhere, even if I've never heard of that author or whatever at all, if I run into something and I see a plaque or like something in a guide or something that says so-and-so famous author lived there, even if I've never heard of them, I need to go. Anyway, so I've got loads of them. I'm not going to say like about all of them, obviously, because this is not Literary Destinations 101. We're not here for the semester, okay? I'll just say a couple of them. But I was sort of looking back at them and realised that they're so ingrained in my mind as an obvious thing to do, and I do them all the time, that I haven't written them down anywhere. I haven't like recorded them for posterity really, except for the random picture randomly, because it's never been like a particularly big thing on my mind. It's just been like an always thing. But anyway, I gotta be quick about this as well. I gotta pick up my kid soon. Okay, so I was thinking I'd start with like quite far off and like notable ones, because I've been to 49 countries now. Annoyingly, the 50th one has been held off for ages because of COVID. Like, I'm just right on that cusp of 50 for years, which is the most annoying thing. But I've been to quite a lot of countries now, and some of them are quite, you know, weird. Like, I don't know, not weird obviously because people live there and it's normal lives, but sort of far away from where I'm from, you know, like Azerbaijan and Armenia, you know, Morocco. So I'll say the first one is Bran Castle, right? So like you sort of see it and it's this gorgeous sort of thing on a hill, and it's like linked to you know, Dracula and like the writing of Dracula and everything like that. And you think, oh, you know, Bram Stoker's been there, he's based it on this book, I need to go. But then we went there and it was like, you know, just a sort of normal-ish sort of castle. And you find out later though, it's in Transylvania, or like on the border between Transylvania and Wallachia, which is like this place where Dracula lived and stuff, or like the Vlad Dracula guy. But they're pretty sure he was never there. Like, he may have been imprisoned there, but they're pretty sure he was never there. And also Bram Stoker was never there. And the description of the castle in Dracula is nothing like that castle, so it's quite famously linked with Bram Stoker for seemingly no reason. And also everything around it is like super cheesy. So you go in, it's just like a normal-ish castle, and then everything around is like, you know, Dracula posters and Dracula everything, and like super cheesiness. Basically like one step down from like Head in the Stocks, you know, like when you can do that. But I went there with my crazy friend Kathy, and it was an absolute blast, and she was super into it because she's like really into this like cheesy Dracula shit, you know. She like loves the Sci-Fi Channel. She was into it. Also, I met my husband there, so I got a souvenir that's lasted a good 10 years. I think that's pretty good. If anything, I preferred like the area around it, like the sort of side streets and like little bits of that similar area that were quite like Romanian and like authentically sort of Transylvanian, stuff like that. That was much better than Bran Castle itself. That was some bullshit. Okay, so the next one is in Florence, Italy, and it's Dante's house. So this guy, Dante, he wrote like what, Divine Comedy, you know, like Inferno and like the Seven Circles of Hell and everything. I've not read it all the way. I've had to read excerpts in school, and it wasn't terrible. I might get to that someday. But he was born in like the 13th century, like late 1200s or something, and his house is still there. And it's just, you know, like it was on the outside. There's like this well thing outside, and they've got a museum and everything. And it's crazy to think about someone living there in the 1200s and 1300s, and it's just surrounded, like it's right next to this massive square with all these massive old gorgeous buildings. It's just unreal to think of Florence in the 13th and 14th centuries. It just blows my mind. Anyway, So the next one, I went to, you know, El Floridita, this bar in Havana, in Cuba. So this was like Hemingway's bar. This was like where he went and everyone knew his name. This was like his cheers, this El Floridita. Nowadays it's a bit cheesy. Like, we went in there and the only Cubans in there were the bartender and the band. Everyone else was just obviously tourists. But it was still amazing because, you know, back when Hemingway was there, like, what's it, like 50s or so, he just was going down as local. Like, it's obviously a dive, you know, like when you go in there, you know, it was nothing special about it. He just went in. He used to have mojitos apparently. So I had a mojito there. I took a photo of my mojito. The band was really good. Like, that was a banging time. Probably just because we were drunk and the band was good and not because it was El Floridita. But I can see why he loved it. Okay, now for two that are just really close to home. Like, for me, when I was younger, like not now, but in the Seattle area, sort of wandering around. Like, Forks and La Push, you know, from the Twilight books. This is supposed to be like the area in the continental US that gets the least amount of sun, and that's why the vampires live there, because if they go in the sun they twinkle like fairy lights. Anyway, I took James, my husband, on a road trip through there. I don't know why. I think he wanted to go because it's a rainforest and Sasquatch is there, not because of Forks. But I forced the Forks thing in because why not? I didn't see any vampires there. And the next one is just Seattle itself. It's a UNESCO city of literature, Seattle, like the whole of the city, because there's loads of books there, or like loads of bookstores there, like indie bookstores, indie publishers. Like, it's just got a really vibrant like literature scene. And I think it's also at one point was like the most educated city in America or something. Also it's like one of the most like tech literate as well. Like, I guess that plays into this, like, you know, education and like reading and literature and stuff like that. And I was like going through my pics on my phone and stuff and like trying to find pictures of Seattle, but like, I have nothing for you. I have literally nothing. Like, you know, like, you find this when you live in a place, you know, when you're from a place, you only take pictures of things that are weird that happen in the place. You never take pictures of the place because you just see the place all the time. So I just have a million pictures of things that have happened in Seattle, but no picture of the city itself. I'm sorry. Seattle's designation as a UNESCO City of Literature recognizes the vitality, range, and vigor of the city's literary culture. Seattle supports a wide range of writers, a vibrant culture of indie book selling, a multi-platform publishing industry, an eclectic array of literary organizations, and a healthy culture of reading and engagement in events and festivals. The designation was made in recognition of the following factors, amongst others: quality, quantity, and diversity of publishing and editorial initiatives, quality and quantity of educational programs, Seattle's urban environment in which literature is integral, Seattle's experience at hosting literary events and festivals and promoting foreign and domestic work, Seattle's libraries, bookstores, and cultural centers. Like, it does have a wild library that looks like a bubble. But while I was like going through these pictures, okay, like, do you remember when we had to listen to CDs at the bookstore before you like knew if you wanted a CD? As I was like going through my photos, I had one from like 2006 or something like that of my friend took a picture of me listening to a CD before I bought it at like Barnes and Noble or something. Do you remember that? Okay, and then like a couple more like through America on like various road trips or like in other places that I've lived around America, because my dad was in the army. I've lived in like quite a few of them. One of them is the Strader Hotel in Durango. So this is used to be like a Wild West, like frontier, like wild saloon, you know, with like prostitutes and like shooting people in the door and everything like that. But nowadays it's just like, you know, an old hotel with a bar. And the reason that this one is a literary one is because Louis L'Amour used to write there all the time. So like all of his like cowboy books and everything were written there. But for some reason, in my camera and everything, the only pictures that I took of that whole night are like a bit of wallpaper from the wall, which was cute, but quite normal. Also like a napkin that said like something about going to the office at the Strader Hotel. And then also my drink on my napkin. Like, it was a piss up and we were drunk. It was like a bit of a pub crawl through Durango. You know, so that was a good time. And I'm not gonna argue with myself about the choices I made then. But I wish I took better pictures. Actually, I just lied to you about all the places I was going to talk about in America. I forgot, like, I had a couple on my list, but I binned them out because this like list was getting too long and the video was going to be about 1,000 years. So I struck all those. Like, if you want to know what they were, let me know. You know, they're quite normal you know, US places literary connection. But I think the next one actually that I do want to say is not in America, it's in England. It's Jamaica Inn, which you think would be effing amazing. You think of Jamaica Inn, you know, Daphne du Maurier, that book was banging. I love that book. So creepy, so cool. But then Jamaica Inn, the actual place that it was based on in Cornwall, this sort of like, I think it's like a 17th century inn or something like that, 18th century. It is now a bit of a tourist trap. Fair. So as I said about that stocks thing, like my kid did the stocks thing. Also, it's like quite an old bar and it's still old. You can walk through it and you can see like the old timbers and everything. Like I do love an old pub, me. But there's so many old pubs in the UK. There are some just like a 5 minutes drive away from me. Like I didn't need to go all the way to Cornwall to see an 18th century pub. And like there were loads of like cheesy like Daphne du Maurier souvenirs in the gift shop and stuff, which I did buy some. But I feel like it ruins the literary destination when it's just like full of touristy craziness and it like loses its appeal. So it was like a bit of a letdown. Okay, though a way better one in Cornwall. It was on that same trip. I think it was like my 30th birthday trip. We went to Tintagel, right? So Tintagel's like the legendary birthplace of King Arthur, and it's this massive like castle complex thing that spreads over whole cliff tops. So there's like this really wonky bridge that's like super scary. It goes over this huge chasm onto this like island bit, this like rocky island bit, and it just like the castle ruins just spread over this huge outcrop. That was super fun and absolutely gorgeous. Like the water, like the color of the water beneath you, just so blue and gorgeous, and just sort of like looking out at the edge of the world. It felt like felt really Arthurian, you know. And then the next one I have on my list is Bath in England. So apparently Jane Austen hated Bath. Like she put it in 2 of her books as a destination, but apparently she was not a fan herself. So I don't know why it is that Bath is so associated with Jane Austen. Like there's like the pump house, like the abbey, and like the spa bits and everything like that. And like there's also like this Jane Austen house. You can like go to this like Jane Austen house museum thing and like see about her life. Like apparently I think she stayed there once or something in that house. But I don't really understand why it's so like linked with her. Whenever you think Jane Austen and Bath, oh, they go together. I feel like she'd be really fucked off about it, you know. She'd be like, Bath? I hate Bath. Okay, so like when you look at lists of like all of the best literary destinations in the world, on almost all of the lists, Hay-on-Wye is in the top 10, if not number 1. And that is in Wales, just sort of up the road from me, an hour or so. I did not know that that was a thing until I moved here. And my husband was like, we should go to Hay-on-Wye. And I was like, pardon? Where's this place? I do not know it. Basically, it's just the original town of books. So there's nothing really there. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's like gorgeous, like, you know, pasture land and mountainy, hilly sort of stuff. But it's in the middle of nowhere. The only thing that's there is bookstores, like new bookstores, used bookstores, just a collection of everything to do with books. And they also run a literature festival called Hay Festival that's like famous throughout the world. And they've had loads of speakers like, you know, Bill Clinton, Stephen Fry, Bernie Sanders. Like I saw Margaret Atwood there. I also saw another one, like a kids author one that my kid really liked. All of the main sort of authors and biggest authors and everything go there at least once to talk about their books or whatever. But also so many little ones as well, like ones that launch from there. They become big after they've done like a stint at Hayfest or whatever. And there's like this tent field in the middle of nowhere, or it's like this tent thing in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, with like all these like conference things and like auditorium things and like bookstores and like little stalls and shops and food things. But it's right next to the town, which is just the cutest little town that I love to walk through. Like I cannot sing Hay-on-Wye's praises enough. Hay Festival is online again this year, as it was last year. I cried. I also gave them money because I was worried that they would be in financial straits. But I'm pretty sure 2022 is the year it's going to launch again in real life, and we should all go. I will effing meet you there. Just phone me and I will go there with you. Okay, So the next one, you've probably never heard of this guy, but it's an awesome story anyway. He's a Welsh poet. His name was Evans something, I think. I can't remember his actual name, but his like poet name, his pen name was Hedd Wyn, which is like in Welsh like white peace or something like that. Anyway, he was this really well-known poet in this tiny village that he comes from, Trosvanydd in Wales, and he lived about sort of World War One-ish time. And they have this Eisteddfod here in Wales. It's like a Welsh language and culture festival type thing, but also a competition. So you submit like a poem to the Eisteddfod, and then there's a bard of the Eisteddfod. Someone wins the Eisteddfod and gets this like bardic chair. It's carved by hand out of wood. They have one every year. And basically this guy, Hedd Wyn, there's a movie about him as well. It won like, I think like an Oscar or something for foreign language film. It's in Welsh. So this guy, Hedd Wyn, he was writing a poem to submit to the Eisteddfod. And he had to join into the war effort, and he goes off. He comes back for like just a small vacation or something like that, and he decides that he's a pacifist. He doesn't believe in the war. He wants to be a shepherd. He stays. He like overstays his leave, and then they come and get him and they force him back. And because it was so quick him going back, and it was a forced sort of sending, he left his half-written poem at home. So he's in the war now, he's in the trenches, and he's not only got to finish his poem, but he's got to rewrite the bit that he left at home. Anyway, he sends this off to the Eisteddfod, and then the Eisteddfod time comes, and they do like this whole like weird like bardic like robe and like tradition thing in a circle, like I don't know, old sort of Celtic stuff. And they announced the winner, like the bard of the Eisteddfod, and they announced that Hedd Wyn won it. But he didn't stand up. No one came to claim it at all, because he had been killed like a week earlier at Passchendaele in Belgium. So basically they had to take that chair and they draped it in like a black cloth, and they shipped it home to his parents in Trosvanydd, or like his family in Trosvanydd. And now it's called like the Black Chair, because it's just so sad that he died in the war before. And like the chair itself was carved by this like Belgian woodworker. So it's a guy from Belgium anyway. He had come to the UK to seek like shelter from the war itself. Like he was like a refugee from the war, and as a thank you to the people of Wales for taking him in and letting him stay there while the war was on, he did this chair, and then it ended up going to a guy who died in Belgium in the war. Like, how depressing is that? But anyway, I went to his house. That's the literary thing that I'm getting to. He has, his house was called Yrysgwrn. It was a farmhouse in Trosvanydd in Wales. And it's just in this gorgeous area. Like, it's green and hilly and rolling landscapes. It's so peaceful. Like, there's sheep there. You can just hear, like, sheep bleating in the background. And it's just, like, this really old farmhouse. And I think the guy's nephew, or, like, great-nephew or something, I think it's his nephew, is still alive. He's really old, and he sort of I think he remembers him as well. Like, he has memories of being really young, and you can like talk to him. He like talks to everyone he comes into the house and says sort of about like his memories and stuff. It was just a good time. That was a good time in the middle of nowhere, guys. Okay, so the next ones. So on the one that I was watching, Bookish, like he was doing this tag as well, and he said about all these like pubs he'd been to in Dublin that were literary. Like, same friend. I've done that same round of like literary pubs in Dublin. Like, one that I could remember was Davy Byrne's pub, and it's like mentioned in Ulysses, like James Joyce Ulysses. It's mentioned in chapter 8 apparently. Like, I remember taking a photo, but that was basically it. Like, also I've been to the White Horse Tavern in New York. And this is the one where apparently Dylan Thomas had like a crap ton of whiskeys and then went home and died, which is sad, but I did really love it. And I forced my friend to go there as well. It was like way outside of like her area that she knows. We had to get on the subway for ages to get there. And we sat down there and she's like, "Are you happy now?" And I was like, "Yes!" I've also been to, okay, so I didn't realize that this was a huge thing until I started looking at like places in Seattle that were literary that I've been to. And I've been to this place called the Blue Moon Tavern, which was literally across the street from my apartment for 4 years or 3 years. And I went there one time because the vast majority of the time that I lived there, I was under 21. So I've only been there once. But I think it's gone under now because of COVID. Like, it couldn't weather the storm of COVID. But as I was looking, I realized that it's a major literary thing. Apparently, regulars included all in the 1950s, so it's been there for like 100 years. In its heyday in the 1950s and 60s, regulars included authors Tom Robbins, like loads of these, Leo Kenny, Ken Kesey, Allen Ginsberg, and Dylan Thomas. What? And they also have a thing, a popular story claims that sometime in the late 1960s, Tom Robbins tried to call the artist Pablo Picasso in Barcelona from a payphone at the Blue Moon Tavern. Supposedly, Robbins got through to Picasso, but the artist refused to accept the overseas collect calling charges. I hope that they haven't gone under, or that they will revive so that we can all go there again, because now that I know that, I'm sad that I didn't know that when I was there. Okay, so I've also been to this place in Bristol. We went it's just over the water to England, Bristol, and it's called the Landogger Trow, but it's spelled like the way that Welsh names are spelled, like with the LLAN at the beginning. So it should be Llandogger, but you know, it's in England. I don't mind. Do you? So the Landogger Trow, it was built in 1664, and it was the inspiration for Robert Louis Stevenson when he wrote about the Admiral Benbow in Treasure Island. Supposedly Daniel Defoe met Alexander Selkirk there, his inspiration for Robinson Crusoe. I thought I was just getting a drink, but I was getting a life-changing moment. Okay. So I thought now I'll tell you things that are up on the docket, okay? My list of places that I need to go literary-wise is never-ending, just goes on. And the ones that I think I'm going to hit next are ones in the UK that are definitely doable due to COVID, blah, blah, can't go a lot of places, whatever. So I've got my eye set. Dylan Thomas Boathouse in Swansea. You can just go to his house. It's a boathouse. It's gorgeous. Also, Haworth House, which is the Brontes' old house. I think this is up by my mother-in-law, potentially in Yorkshire. Can't remember where it is exactly, but it's like up north, up that way. Also, Whidbey Island is next to her as well. It's like Dracula. You know, if you read Dracula, it's all of the places in England happen at Whidbey Island, like the sort of abbey, you know, the abbey ruins, and like the steps. There's like these famous steps that go up. So those are my next hits. I apologize if this was basically the longest video that's ever happened on the planet. I will try to edit it down. There's only so much editing you can do, you know, when you're a rambler. Anyway, I definitely want to hear your thoughts. If you've had similar adventures, where have you gone that were literary places? Did you have an amazing time? Did you have a shit time? Was it funny? Okay, I definitely want to know. Places also that you want to go, like what is on your literary bucket list, because I may need to add that to my bucket list if it's not already there, if you know what I mean. But anyway, if you have any thoughts, any comments, anything, please let me know. I need to go get my kid now. Okay, goodbye.